Your dog's licks aren't just kisses. Some are a cry for help. Your dog just licked your hand again, third time in 10 minutes, and you smiled. Because that is what tongues are for, right? Except sometimes that same lick is not a kiss at all. It is your dog's only way of telling you something hurts. And most tutors never learn to hear the difference. Dogs walk into my clinic every week for licking the kitchen floor, the same tile, over and over. And most of those dogs turn out to have something wrong with their stomach, not a strange little habit. So before you decide the next lick you get is only love, there is a second kind of lick worth knowing, one that shows up on a leg instead of your hand, one so easy to miss that most tutors treat it for months as skin trouble when the truth is hiding somewhere else in the body entirely. Before you decide your dog just loves you extra today, there is one distinction almost nobody teaches tutors, and it decides whether that lick is sweet or a symptom. I have spent close to 20 years as a vet with dogs exactly like yours crossing my exam table, and I have learned to read a lick the way you read a bark. Tell me in the comments where in the world you are watching from, because I read every single one. If you are already replaying every lick your dog has ever given you, feeling guilty for not noticing sooner, let that go right now. Nobody logs every lick, and the truth is, almost all of them really have been affection. The fact that you are here, paying attention to something this small, already tells me exactly what kind of tutor your dog has. The kind who catches things early, while they are still cheap and simple to fix. Here is the myth almost every tutor believes without question, that licking is always love, always harmless, never worth a second look. It makes sense why people believe it. Licking feels good, puppies get trained into it as a bonding cue, and every single dog on earth does it to some degree. But licking actually sits on a spectrum. The same act that means pure affection when it is light and occasional can mean nausea, joint pain, mouth pain, skin irritation, or anxiety once it turns frequent, focused, sudden, or aimed somewhere strange, the air, a wall, a bare patch of floor, instead of a person. The real question was never whether your dog licks. It is whether the pattern changed. And one of the signs that reveals that change is so strange that most tutors never even connect it to licking at all. Inside your dog, a tongue actually reports before it does anything else. When the stomach signals nausea up to the brain, saliva rises and licking increases, which is why lip and air licking so often show up minutes before a dog vomits. A cracked tooth or sore gums works the same way. The tongue keeps checking the sore spot, so it comes out as licking the lips and the air. And a dog licking one small spot on a leg over and over is often just scratching an itch it cannot otherwise reach, an aching joint, irritated skin, or, when nothing physical turns up, anxiety that has nowhere else to go, because repetitive licking actually releases the same calming chemicals in the brain that pacing does. One of those three causes is far more common than tutors expect, and it shows up first on you. Start with the licking that lands on you specifically. A little extra affection is nothing. Dogs greet with their tongue and they like the salt on your skin. But watch for a sudden jump, not a slow build, especially if your dog will not stop even when you gently push away, and especially if a meal gets skipped around the same time. That combination is worth watching for a day or two, not ignoring. Then there is licking the air or the lips with a soft swallow, which most tutors read as nothing. One lick after a good dinner is completely normal. The shift to worry is repeated smacking between meals, drooling or eating grass, because that combination often shows up in the minutes right before a dog throws up. And if it repeats more than once or twice, that is a same-day call to your vet, not a wait and see. This is usually the point where tutors realize they have already learned something real tonight, which is exactly why, if you have not yet, this is the moment to hit subscribe and tap that like button. Not for me, but because it helps this kind of information reach more tutors before their dog's licking turns into an emergency, and it costs you nothing. Now for the pattern that surprises almost everyone. Licking the floor, the wall, bare carpet, nothing on it at all. A curious sniff and a single lick at something interesting is completely normal dog behavior. The shift to worry is returning to that same bare spot, licking it several times a day for no obvious reason. And here is the number that stops most tutors cold. In dogs specifically brought to the vet for this exact behavior, roughly 3 out of 4 turned out to have a real digestive condition once fully checked, against about 3 in 10 in healthy dogs examined the same way. That is not a coincidence. That is a tongue reporting something real. Then there is the spot licked raw or bald, One single patch on a leg, a paw, a flank, licked until the fur thins or the skin turns pink and angry, which almost never resolves on its own. And last, licking that spike specifically during fireworks, thunder, or being left alone, and keeps going long after the noise stops, which points toward anxiety rather than the body. That last one raises an uncomfortable question. If a behavior like that is never addressed, where does it actually go? Left alone, none of these patterns tend to stay small. Occasional licking after a meal can settle into daily lip smacking as mild reflux turns into something chronic. Surface licking, waved off as a quirky habit, can run for months alongside a digestive condition that keeps quietly inflaming the gut underneath, showing up later as a dull coat, weight loss, or stool that is never quite normal. A single raw patch on a leg, ignored, can turn into an open wound that gets infected, since a dog's tongue carries bacteria and the licking never lets the skin actually close, sometimes needing weeks of a cone and antibiotics to fix what an early bland diet or a joint check could have caught in days. And anxiety licking, left unmanaged, tends to spread, from one trigger to several, from the leg to the flank to the tail. None of this stays contained to just the tongue either. A stressed gut pulls resources from the whole body, showing up as a dull coat and irregular stool. A dog anxious enough to lick compulsively is also more likely to startle easily and sleep poorly, because the same stress chemistry runs both. And a sore joint behind spot licking rarely stays isolated, since a dog shifting weight off one aching leg quietly stresses the opposite hip over time. Let me tell you about a 4-year-old beagle named Otis. His tutor was convinced he had simply turned obsessive, licking the kitchen floor tile by tile every single evening like clockwork. Blood work and an ultrasound found mild pancreatitis brewing quietly underneath, nothing his tutor could have seen from the outside. 2 weeks on a bland, low-fat diet, and the floor licking nearly disappeared entirely, because the itch he had been chasing was never actually the tile. That case is exactly why what you put in the bowl over the next few days matters more than any spray or any punishment ever could. Start tonight with something that costs nothing. A 3-day licking log kept right next to the food bowl. The time, what was actually being licked, air, floor, a person, one spot on the body, and what was happening around it, before or after a meal, during a loud noise, alone or with company. That alone turns a vague worry into a real pattern within days. If the pattern points toward the stomach, lip licking, air licking, a skipped meal, ease the gut for 2 to 3 days with a bland base. Plain boiled chicken or lean ground meat with plain white rice. No seasoning, no onion, no garlic. Roughly 2/3 rice to 1/3 meat. For a small dog, that is about half a cup total per meal. For a medium dog, closer to a cup to a cup and a half. And for a large dog, around 2 cups. Split into 2 smaller meals so the stomach is never overloaded at once. Add plain canned pumpkin to that base, never pie filling, which often hides xylitol, the sugar substitute also called birch sugar that can crash a dog's blood sugar and damage the liver even in a small amount. 1 to 2 teaspoons for a small dog, 1 to 2 tablespoons for a medium dog, 2 to 4 tablespoons for a large dog, once or twice a day, and calmer licking usually shows within 2 to 3 days. If surface licking is specifically the pattern, ask your vet about adding a plain probiotic for a week or 2, since gut balance is often what is actually off. If instead one spot is being licked raw, stop treating the skin alone. Check for a limp or a flinch when the joint is pressed, because a spray on the surface will never fix pain underneath it. And if licking spikes with noise or being left alone, a frozen lick mat thinly smeared with plain pumpkin or plain yogurt, never anything with grapes, raisins, chocolate, or cooked bone anywhere near it, channels that same calming urge somewhere safe instead of onto a wall or a leg. Skip concentrated essential oils near the mouth or a licked spot entirely, since many are toxic to dogs even in small amounts on the skin. A lot of what gets sold to stop licking only ever treats the surface. Bitter sprays, cones handed out before anyone looks underneath, calming chews with no real dosing behind them. None of that is evil exactly, but it skips the one question that actually matters. Why is the dog licking in the first place? Figuring that out usually costs less than the spray. I think back often to a senior mixed breed named Maple, who licked one spot on her front leg until it went bald and pink. Her tutor tried a bitter spray faithfully for a month and nothing changed. An exam found early arthritis in that exact leg. Once the joint itself was treated, the licking stopped within days, not because the skin finally healed on its own, but because the real cause had never been the skin at all. That is the pattern worth remembering. A raw licked spot is very often not a skin problem wearing a skin problem's face. It is a joint or an anxious mind in disguise, and no amount of spray was ever going to reach that. So here is what all of this adds up to. A change in how, where, or how much your dog licks is usually the clearest early message you already have access to, long before any test confirms it. One more thing before you go build that bowl tonight. Do not add the bland base, the pumpkin, the probiotic, and the lick mat all in the same afternoon. A dog's stomach adjusts to one new thing at a time, and stacking several at once makes it impossible to tell what actually helped. Bring in the bland base first, then the pumpkin a day or two later, and only add the probiotic if surface licking is still showing up a week on. Tell me in the comments which kind of licking your dog does most. Your hand, the air, the floor, or one single spot. Just one word is enough. If this helped you read your own dog a little better, subscribing costs nothing, and it means this reaches the next tutor whose dog is quietly trying to tell them something too. Go check that log tonight, and maybe scratch behind the ears while you are at it, because a dog that trusts you enough to lick you at all deserves a tutor who finally understands what it means.